Since untested, untried, and potentially lethal experimental vaccines are restricted as biological weapons from distribution to rogue nations, why even contemplate forcing the same vaccine onto American citizens? The only purpose for forcing American citizens to take these vaccines can be to cause death and injury under the guise of employing them for peaceful purposes, because these vaccines are, according to the United States government's own regulations, so dangerous they have to be kept out of the hands of terrorist nations for fear they might use them in a terrorist attack. Skipping down to page 19. Mexico's top government epidemiologist said Wednesday that it is highly improbable that a farm in the Mexican state of Veracruz, operated by Smithfield Foods Incorporated, is responsible for the nation's swine flu outbreak. Dr. Leonard Horowitz states in a 10.41-minute YouTube clip that the swine bird human flu strain in Mexico could have only come from Dr. James S. Robertson and colleagues because, quote, nobody else takes H5N1 Asian flu-infected chickens, brings them to Europe, extracts their DNA, combines their protein with H1N1 viruses from the 1918 Spanish flu isolate, additionally mixes in some swine flu genes from pigs, then reverse engineers them to infect humans. Then she gives the YouTube site. In addition, Dr. Horowitz indicates that there is hard evidence to show that Dr. James Robertson believes it is okay to prime populations worldwide by releasing viruses he and his colleagues are created in advance of a pandemic. Dr. Horowitz mentions the involvement of Dr. Rick Bright, who has ties to the World Health Organization, the Center for Disease Control, and Novavax Incorporated, and is involved in PATH, Influenza Vaccine Project, in the Vaccine Development Global Program. An analysis of the swine flu genome sequence by Alexander S. Jones indicates that 5% of both these influenza A RNA sequences share no known homology in any public databases. In addition to the avian swine hybrid nature of both these critical genes, and so a laboratory origin for this virus must be seriously considered. Alexander S. Jones concluded, we must seriously consider a laboratory origin for this virus because 5% of both these influenza A RNA sequences share no known homology in any public databases. Both these influenza proteins, based on the genetic sequences released Friday, May 1st, by the U.S. Centers of Disease Control, share their closest genetic identity with turkey, avian, and pig swine strains from multiple continents, including North America as well as Asia. Even the closest matches indicate 5% previously unidentified genetic material. Furthermore, I submit that since 5% of both these influenza A RNA sequences share no known homology in any public databases, in addition to the avian swine hybrid nature of both these critical genes, then we must seriously consider a laboratory origin for this virus. Further research that may be promising includes identifying critical NSPs, especially in the PB2 and the NS1 coding regions, which may be markers for evolution of pathogen virulence and should be closely monitored. The hemagglutinin protein should also be monitored for acquisition of a polybasic amino acid site, which would give the virus pantrophic properties as in the 1918 pandemic. Alexander S. Jones. I certify that to the best of my abilities that this virus is synthetic, laboratory created, not natural. In early 2009, Baxter Pharmaceutical, based in the 10th District of Chicago, with a BSL-3 facility in Orthdana, Austria, sent contaminated highly lethal bird flu vaccine material to multiple labs in 4 separate countries: Austria, Germany, Czech Republic, Slovenia. This material was represented as seasonal flu material, although it actually contained the highly lethal bird flu virus. The amount of contaminated vaccine was 72 kilograms. This contamination was discovered only through the work of a subcontractor who injected the vaccine material into ferrets and found it to be 100% lethal. This indicates season flu vaccine intended for this year was to be contaminated with bird flu. Baxter executives are presently under criminal investigation in Austria. Despite being under criminal investigation in Austria, and despite having contaminated 72 kilograms of seasonal flu vaccine material with deadly bird flu, enough to kill the world population several times over, Baxter was given the contract to produce swine flu vaccine for fall 2009, the European Union by the World Health Organization. This indicates a level of racketeering and criminal activity. The contamination of Baxter's flu vaccines is connected with President Obama's office as well as the World Health Organization. Again, I'm reading from the apparent criminal charges by Ms. Burgermeister. Next heading, evidence as to the role of Baxter as a covert dual-purpose bioweapons developer and producer. Baxter Pharmaceutical has been chosen by the World Health Organization to lead the efforts in finding a vaccine cure for the swine flu H1N1 virus. This, in spite of the fact that Baxter AG, headquartered in Vienna, and the Austrian subsidiary of the pharmaceutical company Baxter International, headquartered in Deerfield, Illinois, USA, sent vaccine material contaminated with deadly live H5N1 bird flu virus to 16 laboratories in 4 countries in the winter of 2009 before a technician caught the mistake. Okay, I'm not going to read all of the previous paragraphs. It can just be too voluminous. I'll start again here. In criminal charges filed against Baxter on April 8, 2009 at the Vienna City Prosecutor's Office, it was alleged that Baxter unlawfully, willfully, and knowingly, in the period between December 2008 and February 2009, employed manipulative and deceptive devices and contrivances in violation of national and international laws on the manufacturing, possession, release, and dissemination of biological weapons of mass destruction, and on organized crime to manufacture and distribute a biological agent that is classified as a bioweapon among the population in order to profit from the pandemic. Second, Baxter distributed via AVIR this contaminated vaccines using false concealment and a false label to 16 laboratories in Austria and in other countries at the end of January, beginning of February, potentially infecting at least 36 to 37 laboratory staff who had to be treated preventively for bird flu and ordinary flu in the hospital. Moving on. Page 38. According to media reports, Dr. Rebecca Carley maintained in March 2009 that this was a deliberate attempt to start a pandemic. Basically, they are trying to cause the pandemic. They have already stockpiled at least 250 million doses of the bird flu vaccine. The shelf life of that vaccine has a certain amount of time by which they'll have to throw it in the garbage. So they have to start the pandemic so that they can give the vaccines, which will then cause the bird flu pandemic. In fact, this is an Associated Press article that says that our government is reluctant to give bird flu vaccine to some of the rogue nations for fear they will use the vaccine as biological warfare. So when you actually look at what's out there, folks, it becomes crystal clear. This is genocide. This is population reduction, and it's happening right now.